Alright, so I got my diesel heater today. It's actually really warm out today. So I'm going to take advantage of a little bit of this day that I have left right now and try and get this cut out. This is the mounting plate that it came with to mount it to the floor. They sell a better one on Amazon that has a round piece hooked to the bottom. It was like 22 bucks. But this one came with it, and this is the exact same one that I used on the last camper, and it did okay as well, so I'm going to go ahead and use this one. Alright, so I traced that out for a template, and what I did on the last camper was I just took and made me a circle basically around this. You don't want to go past this line here because that's where it's going to seal. You want to leave at least about a ½ inch right here to put some sealer around the bottom of this, some heat-proof RTV around the bottom of that. But you want to come out enough to where your exhaust pipe and all that isn't nowhere near this plywood. Draw all that out and then cut that center part out. Alright, so it's going to be something like that. I'm going to cut this inside line out. Then this whole piece here will just drop down onto the ground. Alright, so I got that all cut out down there. Next thing I'm going to do is bolt this plate to the heater. Now I got one of these over there coming out of that wall. I got another one down there. I've owned about 3 more of these diesel heaters, and I'm going to tell you right now from experience, the first thing you want to do is take this rubber gasket off that's on the bottom of this. It comes with it. Get rid of this because this thing stinks to high hell, and you'll never get this thing to stop smelling like burnt rubber until you take it all back apart and take this rubber gasket back off. Get rid of it, throw it in the trash. Alright, so this is how I like to normally start off on the floor mount ones. While you have it upside down, go ahead and mount the exhaust on. Mount the combustion chamber air inlet and your fuel line. Go ahead and pull this fuel line this direction towards your air intake. You can use the cheaper clamp that it comes with for the air intake for the combustion chamber right here, but use a decent one. If you have two decent ones, use good ones on both, but you definitely want to use a real good clamp on the exhaust side because these are just those cheap little Chinesium garbage clamps that they come with. They'll work, but you really don't want to use them if you don't have to. Next thing I'm going to do is I have some of this fiberglass heat wrap stuff. I want to go ahead and cover this exhaust tube with it all the way up to here, and that'll keep this fuel line and this other hose from getting hot, as well as keep the floor, the plywood underneath on the bottom of the trailer and all that. It'll keep it all cool as well. Alright, so that's what that looks like. I didn't go all the way to the end because I'm going to be cutting some of this off. I don't want it hanging too far out off the side of that trailer underneath. So one thing you can use those other cheap clamps for is you can come back and put at least one on the outside to keep this heat wrap from sliding off. And then you can also keep in mind on this stuff, when it heats up, it will smoke for a little while. Most header wrap does, especially if it's colored like this black stuff. I noticed the black color stuff always smokes more than the white, but it'll go away, so just keep in mind, be looking out for that. Now I did leave just a short piece hooked on here because I don't know exactly where I'm going to be putting my fuel pump yet. I know that I'm going to be drilling an additional hole in the floor to run this through, which I wish on these that they would make like a 2-pin connector to where you could disconnect these, because I am going to have to splice this wire off so I don't have to drill a hole this large in my floor. But I'm going to have to cut this so I can drill me a small hole to run this through the floor, and then this will go down and plug into this fuel pump, which will be mounted underneath. A lot of people don't like the way these sound because they have a tick sound to them. I think my last camper I built, I actually had this up front, up in front of the camper on the exterior. But my beds are in the front on this one, so I don't want it up there where the AC and stuff is, where that fuel tank's going to be. This one's probably going to be underneath, and then maybe I'll put I may put a piece of foam or a piece of rubber underneath this just to quiet it down just a little bit, but I'm not too concerned with it. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is put some sealer around the floor, which is where this is going to seal all the way around. This is what I'm going to be using. This is what I used last time in my camper. It worked perfectly fine. This isn't necessarily made for heat. This is a marine adhesive. This is Sikaflex 291. I'm not going to recommend using this. The best thing to use would be the red gasket maker, the Permatex stuff. But I have some of this. I've used it before. It did fine. And this is what I'm going to use. Alright, let's try and get this thing down in here. Try to do it without getting glue on everything. Right about there. Okay. All right. There's that. I'm going to go ahead and get some screws in these four corners. And then I'll take it around underneath and show you what it looks like. Alright, so that's what that came out like. You can see where it's squished out around the edges. I got one mismatched screw right here because the ones that I used here, those are self-tappers. And for some reason this one up here in the corner didn't grab, so I took it back out and put a regular construction screw in there, but that's no big deal. I'm going to show you what it looks like from underneath. Alright, so that's the bottom where I cut it out. Now you can see why I had that header wrap, that exhaust wrap around that exhaust side. It looks closer than what it is because that wrap is kind of bubbled out up there, but it's not as close to that wood over there as it looks right there. So this is coming out. And then what I'll do is I'll mount this exhaust pipe right here to the side of the frame. Now I can cut some of that off. And then next I'm going to figure out where I'm going to put my fuel pump. Alright, so this pump has an arrow on it. So it flows this way. So you're going to have the hose from the fuel tank coming in here. It's going to pump this direction to the heater. And it actually did come with a rubber mount, so I won't have to come up with something to go underneath it. It actually came with a rubber mount. Alright, so I got my air intake mounted here. It's pulled away the opposite direction from the exhaust. Air intake's pulling from that side. Exhaust is out here. Got my pump over here mounted to the chassis. You can see the arrows there. So it's pulling fuel this direction into the heater. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop out this other side right here and then run through this hole on the chassis, which runs the full length of the trailer. And I'll run that fuel line all the way to the front where my fuel tank's going to be. See that hole back there? That goes all the way to the back through every single cross beam on the frame. Alright, this is that wire I told you that I had to cut. This is going to the fuel pump, which is directly underneath where this hole is, coming up through the floor. Then this will connect back to the main harness, which will be plugged in inside of here. And my battery will probably be right over in this area. Alright, so there's my exhaust coming up under there. So it comes up, it's hooked onto the bottom of the frame right there. There's a fuel pump. Fuel pump's wired in. There's my line coming from the tank, which is going up, which isn't fastened down yet. It's not hooked up to the front yet. I'll go show you up there though. So you can see it here. It's going to be coming up from behind here. There's the nipple to the fuel tank. So there'll be a hose hooked to that running up. And right here is where the fuel tank will be mounted, which I don't have the screws in yet. It's got 3 holes. Be mounted right there. Alright, so right here is where the thermostat's going to be. So if you've seen any of the earlier videos, there's going to be a cabinet. There's going to be a bar right here that goes across with a cabinet on the front. So this right here you won't see. None of this wiring you'll see. But you'll have this that'll pop up just from here to here on the wall. And then that cabinet will come across here. And then down here there'll be a battery. And then probably something on top of that. And then there's going to be some kind of 12-volt fridge above this. I'll have a hose just coming off of this. Probably popping out the front somewhere, blowing heat out. And then the very top of this will be the stovetop area. 2-burner Coleman propane stove, and then a sink over on this side that will be gravity fed from up here. There'll be a tank up here that'll be gravity fed down. It'll come out a little ways and then just spill straight down in the sink whenever we need to use it. So I'm not going to have a whole lot of electronic stuff in this really, other than the TV and the heater. I do have a power inlet coming. That's probably going to be on that wall over there because that's where my AC is. That way I can have some power coming in for that, and then there'll be TV here and probably TV up here. But that's going to be it on this one.